I welcome the People's Assembly happening here today. It's like bringing the jury, it's bringing common sense into the building, like my jury did at my trial. Thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you inside later. Free Julian Assange.
Julian Assange. Thank you so much, Kathy. Now we've got Trudy Warner, who held what is arguably the most influential sign in British history outside Inner London Crown Court just last year. Trudy, can you tell us what you observed a particular judge? What was he doing to the juries? What did you think about that, and what did you do?
Well, I was watching various trials, and there was a pattern emerging of a judge who was denying defendants the opportunity to talk about their motivation. And these were really deeply principled, thoughtful people who had very strong beliefs, or very strong, the word belief is wrong, but, and I actually felt that to have a trial where defendants can't talk about their motivation and put their actions in context, I thought that that was an insult to the jurors, I thought it was an insult to the defendants, and I think it's an insult to justice, actually. And I was aware of the plaque in the Old Bailey, which says that jurors have a right to acquit according to their conscience. And I thought that is an established legal right, which has been a principle of our justice system since 1670. And that right, maybe jurors actually don't know about that right, and they need to know about it. So all I simply did was went home and wrote those words on a placard, stood silently with the placard alone on the pavement, for which I was arrested. I was then taken to the Old Bailey, the Central Criminal Court, and I now have a hearing at the High Court. Now this, to me, is the stuff of fiction. This is Kafka, this is Orwell, this is Russia, this is China. This is not the UK. Except that it is the UK, it's happening now, it's happening to a very ordinary person like me. I'm a retired social worker, and a year ago I would not have stood on a platform like this and spoken to this kind of a crowd. I would have said it was completely impossible for me to do it, but the Attorney General has brought me here. So, thank you very much. We have a triple bill of tyranny here today, and I hope that we can hold these courts to account. They are our courts.
Thank you, Trudy. So Trudy was what started Defend Our Juries. Her powerful stance against the injustice of judicial overreach. And now we've got Dr. Clive Dolphin, a Defend Our Juries spokesperson. So can you give us some context of what's happening today, and why should the public care about this?
Hello, I'm Clive Dolphin. I'm a spokesperson for Defend Our Juries. Before I tell you why today is really important, I'm just going to give you a little bit of context, a personal story. So, my parents were invited to come across to Britain to help Britain rebuild after the end of the Second World War. So they and a whole pile of people from the West Indies came across here. My father was a skilled person in the car industry. My mother was a social worker. And just about the time when they were starting to settle into their retirement, we started to hear some disturbing stories. We started to hear about people who've been told, "You're not British." And people were saying, "Well, what?" And then we said, "Well, if you don't believe I'm British, you have to prove that, because in Britain, you have to prove it. I'm innocent until you have proved that I'm guilty." And they said, "No, that doesn't apply to you. You have to prove that you are British." So then people said, "Well, I've got a birth certificate, I've got a passport." There's one person who spent decades in the British Army. He said, "I've got my medals, I've got my war record." And the Home Office said, "No, actually, we're the experts on what it is to be British, so we will decide what the test is." And the courts that my parents had so much faith in, said, "Yeah, okay." So then the government said you have to have 2 pieces of documentation for every year that you claim you're in Britain. Not something from a bank, not something from a building society, from the government. There were people writing to schools saying, "Do you still have my school records?" There were people who had parking tickets from the 70s saying, "Do you still have the letter that you sent me for the parking ticket?" So I've known for some time there is a problem with the courts. Why today is so important is because in order for a jury to make a decision about whether someone is innocent or guilty, they need to hear the facts. They need to hear the case. And if you have a defence in law, you get to present your case, you get to present your facts. But if the judge rules that you do not have a defence in law, you can't present your evidence. Your expert witnesses, they can't take the stand. They can't present their evidence. And so if the evidence isn't presented, how are the jury supposed to make a decision? And this is what the courts, in conspiracy with the government, are trying to do. They don't want the jury to acquit. They've been finding that juries, equipped with all the facts, have looked at it and said, "You know what? I believe in what that person's doing. I believe that what they're doing isn't wrong." And so they're trying to corrupt the system, to take away the ability for the jury to hear the evidence. What we have to understand is, once you've done that for one set of trials, you can do it for any set of trials. This applies to all of us. Now, I've heard that just up the road, over there, at the Inner Law Crown Court, Judge Silas Reed has said he's going to delay his case in order to take into account what has happened here in the case that's being heard over here. And I ask you, how can he know that tomorrow there will be a verdict from a case where they haven't even heard the evidence yet? How can he know that? If you don't see something corrupt with that, you really aren't looking. This is why it's important. This is why we're here today. And this is why I'm inviting all of you to follow me, head into the court, let's hear this evidence, and let's have a good old discussion about it.
Thank you so much, Clive. So we're going to move on to go inside the court. We're going to listen on to these hearings. We've got Julian Assange's appeal, and we need to get him free, because we need a free press, we need freedom of speech, we need freedom of information. We need to respect jury trials. The jurors need to be respected and given that information and that truth. And then we need a government that respects international law, doesn't lie to us, and sticks to its own climate change pledges and legislation. Thank you very much.
so it should just be that bit of string. And we need someone down there as well. Next. Oh, that's brilliant, Sid. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much. I know that the court's just about to begin again this morning. This is the Free Assange campaign now back on the stage. Thank you very much for coming out today. Thank you for all the support for the Julian Assange campaign. Of course, this is a very important day in court. This is the second day of the trial, and we'll be hearing what the American government's lawyers have got to say in answer to the case put to them yesterday by Julian Assange's lawyers. Now, I've got a very important speaker here, a very important guest for us to hear a few words from. He's a journalist who has written again and again in defence of Julian Assange, has appeared on platform after platform. He writes absolutely magnificently right across the press, but especially for Middle East Eye. Please welcome writer, journalist Peter Oborne.
Thank you very much indeed, John, for introducing me. And how marvellous it is on a wet day like this to see such a splendid crowd here to mark one of the most significant days of British liberty in our lifetime. I want to introduce myself first of all. I am a conservative. I'm a conservative because I believe in freedom, I believe in the rule of law, I believe in free speech, and above all, I believe in ancient British liberties. And I believe that the executive should be subject to, held accountable, and be subject to investigation when they do things which are wrong. Now, by the way, these may be conservative values, but as the crowd shows today, they are also universal values. And they're on the left, on the right, on the centre. They are universal values which we are here to try and protect and articulate outside the Supreme Court of Justice, which, let's not forget this, ought to be the basis of fairness and decency in this country. But I'm not just here as a conservative, I'm here as a conservative journalist. I've been the political editor of The Spectator, I've been the chief commentator, political commentator for the Daily Telegraph and for the Daily Mail. I've spent my life fighting for the freedom of the press, and this is the greatest threat to press freedom and freedom of journalists of my lifetime. I want to quote a great American journalist of the 19th century. He said, "The purpose of a journalist is not to afflict the afflicted. It is to comfort to the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable." That was is the massive journalistic achievement of Julian Assange, who, if the court case goes the wrong way, today may find himself on a one-way flight to a cell in the United States of America. The one journalist who really articulated this was an American journalist, Daniel Ellsberg, the great whistleblower for the Washington Post, brave, patriotic American who realized that his duty was to reveal America's illegal role in the covert bombing of Laos and Cambodia. He acted out of duty, out of morality, and out of respect for everything which America stands for at its best. Before he died at the great age of 100 last year, I think it was, Ellsberg said, and we must listen to his words, he had a great identification with Julian Assange. And so what is the British government doing? Throwing its weight behind the American desire of an illegal American government which broke the law repeatedly during the War on Terror, supporting the desire of the American establishment to punish Julian Assange for committing the crime of journalism. They are charging Assange under the Espionage Act, and that it is utterly damnable that this British government should kowtow to that American wish. It's the British government, by the way, which has followed Joe Biden, more recently followed Joe Biden in blocking or not supporting a ceasefire in Gaza. These are people who do not know about human rights, do not understand about decency, and in Britain, statecraft is based on the idea that when the Americans say jump, we simply say how high. This is the most far-right British government in history, and their wish to send Assange to America shows that they have no understanding of what British values, freedom of speech, fair play, rule of law, really stand for. And so don't be under any doubt what will happen if Julian Assange, who has broken, by the way, more scoops than any other journalist, all the rest of us put together. And let's say one other thing about his scoops. It's not the usual trash about celebrities or the royal family. These are real scoops about real people, which tell us about the way the world is ruled. Among the countless revelations which Julian Assange brought to the world, the number of Iraqi dead, which had been suppressed by the US. He brought to the world the awful truth about Guantanamo Bay. He brought to the world the video of soldiers in a US hospital laughing as they shot and killed unarmed civilians in Iraq, including a Reuters photographer and his assistant. And by the way, you're wondering whether or not the Americans disciplined the perpetrators of this crime. Of course they didn't. It required Julian Assange, WikiLeaks, Chelsea Manning to go out there and reveal it to the world. And now he is sitting in a cell in Belmarsh, awaiting the verdict of this court here to find out whether he's going to be put on a one-way flight to the United States to suffer the consequences of revealing the barbarity of the United States war on terror. I have only one more thing. I only really have one more thing to say. And I say this as a journalist. Just imagine the consequences for journalism if Julian Assange is extradited. It will mean that none of us will be able to handle US classified documents, let alone publish them in future. And that's not just British journalists, it will be journalists around the world. That is what is at stake today. It will mean that in future, the United States, or probably it will extend across the world, war crimes, atrocities will be kept secret. We will no longer be able to understand or learn about the crimes committed by those who rule the globe. That is what is at stake today, and that is why I'm very proud to stand here and speak up on behalf of freedom, the rule of law, and Julian Assange.
That was Peter Oborne. Thank you very much for that very clear, incisive analysis of what's at stake in the case of Julian Assange, and for your support. And thank you for all making the journey down here and standing in solidarity with Julian Assange, standing up for a free press. We, of course, will be bringing you further updates at the dinner break when the court breaks, at the end of the day when we're going to be marching down to Downing Street. But for now, let's just make sure that everybody going into the court hears very clearly what we're here for, and that there is only one decision: no extradition. No extradition. Only one decision: no extradition. Okay, let's see you one more time. Wave your umbrellas if you support Julian Assange. Thanks very much. Thanks for coming out. We'll see you at lunchtime.
Free!